Good evening. This is Pastor Barbara, aka Preacher with Parish. Today is the 16th of September. Today is a Mexican holiday. Last night was the night of the grito. And I got through the whole night without that. Anyway, on Sunday nights, we have our Bible study in the New Testament, and on Wednesday night, it's in the Old Testament. We are in the United Kingdom, or what followed the United Kingdom, the divided kingdom. We're going to be talking about a couple of prophets tonight. We're using the Bible, the chronological Bible, so we're not going page by page by page in the Bible. Rather, we're going event by event by event by event in the Bible. So as things happen, we study them. We record the live. We got a couple of the birds came back. Oh, this is Mama and Daddy. What happened to the babies? We had somebody else up there the last time I looked. Okay, so we try to take our lessons so that those who miss a lesson, and this is what you would be studying if you were in Bible college. Same thing I taught then that I'm teaching now. And the purpose of the recording is, that's the purpose of the recording. We are in the divided kingdom, and we are last Wednesday night, we got to the bottom of the first chapter of the book of Isaiah. Here we go. He was born 765 years before Christ was born. But we don't start hearing things about him for a few years. And I have to find where we left off Sunday. Here we go. What we had was not the first chapter, but what we read was the 6th chapter, where Isaiah had this tremendous vision of the Lord. He was high, mighty, lifted up. His train, I mentioned the train that brides wear, his train filled the temple. Isaiah got one look at that. He said, I'm not worthy. Woe is me, for I'm undone. I'm a man of unclean lips. I dwell among people that are unclean. He was in the temple. The furniture in the holy place consisted of the menorah, or the lampstand, the table of showbread, and an altar that was 2 feet by 2 feet. made of shittim wood, but covered with gold. And there were like briquettes in it. They were scented. And there was the morning burning of them and the evening. And when they were burned, the scent or the odor of them would go through the curtains that made up the veil that separated the holy place from the Holy of Holies. And that odor could pass through there and could be realized or enjoyed by anybody there. And of course, God had told them that He was there and that He dwelt on the mercy seat, which was the lid of the Ark of the Covenant. At that time, he heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Who will I send?" Who will go? And Isaiah said, "Here am I, send me." And he said, "Go and tell this people, you don't understand. You don't perceive. Make the heart of this people fat and make their ears heavy and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, hear with their ears, and understand with their heart and convert and be healed." And then said I, "Lord, how long?" And he answered, "Until the cities be wasted without inhabitants, and the houses without man, and the land be utterly desolated." We are going to 2 Chronicles and 2 Kings. This is like if we were in the New Testament, reading Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Reading 2 or 3 or 4 accounts of the same thing by different people. They're talking about the king of Judah, the southern kingdom, and that king's name was Jotham. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned for 16 years in Jerusalem. And then it repeats it. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. Now, if we were talking about the other tribes, none of them ever did what was right in the sight of the Lord. But in the case of Judah, some of the kings did what was right in the sight of the Lord, and some didn't. And he did. He did that which was right in the sight of the Lord according to his father Uzziah. Albeit, he was good, but, meaning he wasn't perfect. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord according to all his father Uzziah did. Albeit, he didn't go into the temple of the Lord, and the people did corruptly. So he didn't go to temple. He didn't set that kind of an example, and the people followed his example. Now we go to 2 Kings, and we should hear just about the same thing. In the 2nd year of Pekah, son of Remaliah, king of Israel, now before they were telling us who was king of Judah, now they're telling us who's king of Israel. Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned for 16 years. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, And he did according to all that his father Uzziah had done, albeit the high places were not removed. It's one thing not to go and worship false gods. It's another to go and remove them so that you won't and nobody else will. He did nothing about having the people remain pure. Now we go to Isaiah 1. See, this vision that Isaiah had of God in his greatness in a temple, that was in Isaiah 6. But now we go to Isaiah 1. The vision of Isaiah, the son of Amos, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham. Now we got 4 kings that are going to be kings during the time that Isaiah, that we're going to hear from him. The word of Isaiah, the son of Amos, concerning Judah and Jerusalem. It shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established at the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations will flow into it. We're going to get some prophecy which is yet not fulfilled. Many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, the house of God, the house of Jacob. And he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion, the temple area, and the city of Jerusalem, it's the old city is small, is referred to as Zion, or Mount Zion. He said, Out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Okay. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war no more. And you've heard that. We ain't gonna, where's my, just a minute, I can reach it from where I am. Just a second. I'm going to do this, I want to do it right. Okay. We ain't gonna study war no more. 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 It's talking about the 1,000-year rule of Christ, which was prophecy for them, something that we got everybody now. It was prophecy for them. I should explain on the video that on the other computer, I have a chat box. And on the chat box, those that are present have the option of typing things in, and we also have emotions. So we have some dancing happy faces and some music. Everybody is expressing themselves. All right. It is was future for them. It is future for us. Therefore, thou hast spoken thy people, the house of Jacob, because they be replenished from the east, and are soothsayers like the Philistines, and they please themselves in the city of strangers. Now we talk about chastisement before the blessing. Then we're in chapter 2 of Isaiah. Their land also is full of silver and gold. Neither is there any end of their treasures. Their land is full of horses. Neither is there any end of their chariots. Their land is also full of idols. They worship the work of their own hands, which their own fingers have made. Why is that important? Because the Creator does not serve his creation. It's the other way around. The person who creates something is greater than what he creates. If you're a potter and you make pottery, the potter is greater than the work of his own hands. So he said their land was full of idols. And the mean man boweth down, and the great man humbleth himself. Therefore forgive them not. Enter into the rock and hide thee in the dust, for fear of the Lord, for the glory of the Lord, and for the glory of his majesty. Unless the other guy doesn't also study war no more, that leaves us with a problem. Meaning that if you don't fight, but the other guy does, you're going to get mowed down. I think that's what Dogwood is saying. The lofty looks of man shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of men shall be bowed down, and the Lord alone will be exalted on that day. On that day, the Lord's word will be law. For the day of the Lord of hosts shall be upon every one that is proud and lofty, and upon every one that's lifted up, and he shall be brought low. And upon all the cedars of Lebanon, all great buildings were built from them. They are high and lifted up, and upon the oaks of Bashan, and upon the high mountains, and upon the hills that are lifted up, and upon every high tower, and every fenced wall, every great thing that is big and that they've accomplished. And upon the ships of Tarshish, and upon all pleasant pictures, everything great, everything important, everything of value. And the loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the haughtiness of man shall be made low. And the Lord alone will be exalted in that day, and the idols will be utterly abolished. Sissy, he is good with stuff that he comes up with. He amazes me. Sometimes he is very good. And he said last Sunday, it said his train filled the temple. And in another verse, we had something about a train, spelled the same way. All right. And they shall go into the holes of the rocks, and into the caves of the earth for fear of the Lord, and for the glory of his majesty. Now, fearing the Lord is not being scared of the Lord. It is being super awed, super impressed with him. And then in that day that God is exalted, verse 18, the idols will he utterly abolish. And they shall go into the holes, into the rocks, and the caves of the earth, for fear of the Lord, for the glory of his majesty, when he ariseth to shake the terrible earth. And as I mentioned, I belong to a Facebook group that every once in a while on my Facebook page, somebody from that group makes a comment and it winds up on my page. I don't know how it works. I haven't been a member of it that long. But somebody said my house shook. And this is a group of people who live in the various cities on this mountain. The Running Springs is 6,000 feet. Lake Arrowhead is 5,100 something. My house is about 5,500. Big Bear is about 6,000, but the mountains surrounding it are 7,000 and 8,000. So they were talking about, I'm from RS, meaning I'm from Running Springs, which is 6,000. But apparently there was a 4.5 earthquake in Big Springs. Big Springs is where we had the fire about 6 weeks ago. It was only 20 miles from us, and it was one of those that they hadn't had a fire in 100 years, so there was a lot that had to be burned. But apparently this happened 9 hours ago, so it's 8 o'clock now, I guess probably 10, 11 this morning, and I was up doing things at that time. I didn't feel it. We just don't feel earthquakes too much in the mountains. That's high in the sky, you're right, Sisti. One of the reasons, supposedly, I don't know if it's true, I have heard that the whole mountain is one big rock and you just don't shake it. I had a neighbor who, my neighbors, they're not really close to me, but those that are closer than others have the idea that I can get information out of the internet. So if anybody has a question, I always get an email or a phone call. Would you check the internet? And if somebody said, would you check the internet and see if we had an earthquake Monday and if we had an earthquake on Tuesday? And I remember feeling just kind of now, I lived through the big one where I was in the bathtub and the water left the bathtub and the water left the swimming pool outside. Is not what I call an earthquake, but it was as though one of the dogs had jumped off of a chair, from a chair to the ground. And I had felt that, and I had looked to see if one of the dogs had jumped off a chair, and they hadn't. So I thought, I don't think we had an earthquake, but let me check. And so, you know, Pastor Barbara and Google got together, and we did have on a Monday and again on a Tuesday evening a very, very light earthquake. I guess this is safer place to be when we have earthquakes, because we just don't feel them. All right, let's get on. The day of the Lord of hosts will be proud and lofty, and upon everyone that's lifted up will be brought low. I talk so often about those that think they're all that and so important and so special. The day will come when they will be brought low. And upon every high tower and every fenced wall, and upon the ships of Tarshish and all of that, and the loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the haughtiness of man will be made low. And the Lord alone will be exalted in that day. So those that think there's something big, on that day, nobody's going to be big except the Lord. In that day, a man will cast his idols of silver and his idols of gold, which they made, each one for himself to worship. He's going to toss them to the moles and to the bats. Moles, M-O-L-E-S, and to the bats. And there again, if you can create something, you're better than it because you made it. And so they took the things which they created in order to worship, and they threw them to the moles and the bats. To go into the clefts of the rock and into the tops of the ragged rocks for fear of the Lord, for being in awe, in amazement of the Lord. And for the glory of his majesty, when he arises to shake terribly the earth. Cease you from men, whose breath is in his nostrils, for wherein is he to be accounted of? Now that was the second chapter of Isaiah. We're in the third. We have the third and the fourth and the fifth chapters of Isaiah. And then we go to another prophet who's a minor prophet, and his name is Micah. The reason that we're going to him after 5 or 6 chapters of Israel, I looked down and my eyes fell on the word Israel, of Isaiah, is because we're following this timeline. And remember, I mentioned early on that we were going to talk about 4 kings. And during this period of these 4 kings, Micah also does some prophesying. Now, Isaiah was a major prophet. Micah was a minor prophet. Has nothing to do with the importance of what they had to say. It's whether they wrote a lot or not. Now, they wrote on scrolls. So we don't have the chapters, how many chapters, how many verses. Those were added much later. And they were added so that people could find things in the Bible more easily. But Micah is called a minor prophet because he just wrote a little bit. And Isaiah is called a major prophet because he wrote a whole lot, 60-some or more chapters. All right, let's go back now. Isaiah 3. For behold, the Lord of hosts doth take away from Jerusalem and from Judah the stay and the staff, the whole stay of bread, and the whole stay of water. The mighty man and the man of war, the judge and the prophet and the prudent and the ancient. My, we've got all these people who have important jobs and are important and smart. The captain of 50, that's one who has 50 soldiers underneath him. You remember at the time that Christ died, there was a centurion who said of Jesus after the earthquake, after getting the news that the veil of the temple had been ripped in two from the top to the bottom, after hearing that some graves were opened from the earthquake and some people who had been dead who were now alive and they were walking around in Jerusalem. After all of that, the centurion said, truly, this man was the Son of God. Well, he was a man over 100. And this is talking about a time when their armies were divided up in groups of 50. The captain of 50 and the honorable man. I got 3 cockatiels wandering around on the bottom. I've got Mama and Daddy, and I've got the beautiful one that's made of pearl. What I don't see is the one with one broken foot. So maybe he's not keeping up with the rest of them. I don't know where they're going or what they're planning on doing. I do have to make sure that I don't have any cords on the ground because they love to chew them. Dogwood had a cat that did that. He chewed on cords. These chew on the little tiny ones, like the ones that you use to charge up your cell phones. All right. I will give children to be their princes, and babes shall rule over them. The mighty man, the man of war, the judge, the prophet, the prudent, the ancient. And he says, every man will be oppressed by his neighbor. And a child shall behave himself proudly against the ancient, and the base against the honorable. Important people are not going to appear to be all that important. When a man shall take hold of his brother of the house of his father, saying, you've got clothes, so you be our ruler, and let this ruin be under thy hand. We've got trouble, so you've got clothing, so you're the one to be in charge. In that day shall he swear, saying, I will not be a healer, for in my house there's neither bread nor clothing. Don't make me a ruler of the people. Like the poor can't be leaders. For Jerusalem is ruined, and Judah, now Jerusalem was the city, Judah was the province. I call it a province. It was named for the tribe of Judah. In that day he'll swear and he'll say, don't make me a healer. I don't have any clothes, I don't have any bread. Jerusalem is ruined and Judah is fallen, because of their tongue and their doings are against the Lord. To provoke the eyes of his glory. The show of their countenance, the appearance of their facial expression, doth witness against them, and they declare their sin as Sodom. They hide it not. They're not embarrassed. Their sin is recognized by everybody, but they're not embarrassed. Woe unto their soul, for they've rewarded evil unto themselves. Hey, look at us, we're evil. Hey, how about that? Say you to the righteous that it will be well with them. You that are living right, everything's going to be fine. For they shall eat the fruit of their doings. They have worked, they've been industrious, therefore they have food. Woe unto the wicked, it shall be ill with him, not so good with him, for the reward of his hands shall be given him. As for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. This was written in a day and age when a woman couldn't own property, when women had no rights, that men often, no, these guys have been back up. No, these three are back. Where is the other baby, huh? I may have to go find him. Now, he says, the children are the oppressors. The children are the ones that say, you got to do this, you got to do the other, you got to do. Children are running things, and the women are ruling things. What happened to the guys? Woe to the wicked, it shall be ill with them. The Lord standeth up to plead, and standeth to judge the people. The Lord will enter into judgment with the ancients, with the elderly of his people, and the princes thereof. For you have eaten up the vineyard, the spoil of the poor is in your houses. What mean ye that you beat my people to pieces, and grind the faces of the poor, says the Lord of hosts? Moreover, the Lord said, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, and they walk, I don't think I can do it, and they walk with stretched forth necks and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, making a tinkling with their feet. I have some boots I was looking at earlier today. And, you know, Western boots sometimes have chains that go around the ankles. These are special. They're little hearts. And they're half of a heart and half of a heart. And when I walk, those half hearts make a pleasant sound. I haven't worn those boots in a long time. And because it rained yesterday and it was still kind of wet out today, I wasn't going to wear fancy boots with fancy stuff on them. But I was looking at them when I was figuring out what I was going to wear today. What mean ye that you beat my people to pieces and grind the faces of the poor? Moreover, the Lord said, because the daughters of Zion are haughty, They walk with their necks and so forth. The Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret parts. In that day, the Lord will take away the bravery of their tinkling ornaments about their feet. That's what made me think of my fancy boots. And their coals and their round tires like the moon. The chains and the bracelets and the mufflers, the bonnets, and babies don't hardly wear bonnets anymore. When I think of bonnets, I think of the Amish. The bonnets and the ornaments of the legs and the headbands and the tablets and the earrings. The rings, this one gets me, the nose jewels. The changeable suits of apparel, and the mantles and the wimples and the crisping pins, the glasses and the fine linen and the hoods and the veils. And it shall come to pass that instead of a sweet smell, there will be a stink. And instead of a girdle that goes around the stomach, the waist, the midsection, a rent, something ripped. And instead of a well-set hair, what's worse than hair that's properly done up? What's worse? Baldness. And instead of a stomacher, a girding of sackcloth, and burning instead of beauty. Thy men shall fall by the sword, and the mighty in war. And her gates shall lament and mourn, and she, being desolate, will sit on the ground. I need to check and see where we are time-wise. Okay. We are at chapter 4 and 5, and then we come to Micah. I realize that this is not real interesting reading. They're doing a very good job of painting mental pictures for us. But we don't have a real interesting story going on here. But this is the prophecy of Isaiah. Let me check something here. I could use a different Bible because this one, of course, is chronological. Yeah, I was correct when I said that Isaiah had 60-some chapters. It has actually 66 chapters. We're only in 4. Now, we're not going through the book of Isaiah now, but we will go through a little bit of it. This Isaiah 4, I remember between the time that I was 10 years old and 14, I went to a Baptist church in Hazel Park, Michigan. And we had a very nice pastor's wife, but I and some of the other girls also, we would find things in the Bible we wanted explained to us. Well, I could find things that this pastor's wife was not too comfortable explaining to 11 and 12 and 13-year-old girls. But I remember Isaiah 4. Then I said, yeah, even at 12 years old, I said, not this old gal. Not me. Let me read Isaiah 4 to you. And in that day, now remember how things are with women. They can't own property. We have just done a series of 4 lessons on the Levirate law, where if they were widowed, they would marry the next brother, and that son that would be born would be the legal offspring, not the biological, but the legal offspring of the deceased man, so that his name could be carried on. And we started out with Onan, and then in our second lesson, we had his father, Judah, instead of bringing the third son around, she plays the part of a harlot. And the son is not fathered by a younger brother, but by the father of the deceased man. And then we spent 2 Sunday mornings in the book of Ruth, where we have not only the completion of the law, because the law was the law and people had to be taken care of, but I loved it because there was romance with it. And if 2 people have to live together and have to produce a son, I think, isn't it great if they love each other? I mean, not just doing their duty, but enjoying it and liking it as they do that. Well, here we have something a little different. And in that day, 7 women will take hold of one man. First of all, this 11, 12-year-old said, the guy's coming after me. I'm not going after them. So let's not talk about 7 women running after a man. I'm not running after no man. And then it said, this is what they're going to say. 7 women want to marry this guy. We'll eat our own bread. We'll wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach. They were old maids. They didn't want to be old maids. So they're willing to be 1/7 of a bride? Are you kidding? In that day, the branch of the Lord be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the earth shall be excellent and comely. Comely is pretty, nice looking. For them that are escaped of Israel. And it shall come to pass that he that is left in Zion and he that remained in Jerusalem shall be called holy, even unto the one that's written among living in Jerusalem. In those days, things are going to be so bad that a guy living in Zion or Jerusalem is going to be called holy, and he's going to be something special when the Lord shall have washed away 1/5 of the daughters of Zion, and shall have purged the blood of Jerusalem from the midst thereof by the spirit of judgment and by the spirit of burning. And the Lord will create on every dwelling place, in Mount Zion, every house, every apartment. The Lord will create upon every dwelling place of Mount Zion and upon her assemblies when people gather together. That's an assembly. A cloud and smoke by day. I want you to start thinking and see, what does this remind you of? On Mount Zion, and when people get together, there'll be a cloud of smoke by day, and the shining of a flaming fire by night. For upon all the glory shall be a defense. That's verse 5. And if I read verse 6, if it hasn't dawned on you, the cloud, it will when I read verse 6. And there shall be a tabernacle for a shadow in the daytime from the heat, and for a place of refuge, and for a covert from the storm and from the rain. Remember that 40 years in the desert? There is nothing so cold as a desert at night, and nothing so hot as a desert in the daytime. Rose and I used to go occasionally out to Desert Hot Springs. It wasn't probably an hour and a half to 2 hours drive. And I used to love to get in the hot springs. If you've ever had a backache, that'll cure it. And we would go sometimes in our trailer. And in the early morning or late at night after the sun went down, it's cold. There's wind. And in that desert, that wind blows. There are no trees. There's no mountains. There's nothing to slow or stop the wind. It's cold. And in the daytime, there's sun. There are no trees to get under. There's no shade. Hot heat and cold coolness. Now we go to, do we have time? Yes. We'll finish chapter 5. So that next Sunday night, we will be with Micah, his prophecy. We will end. And after Micah, we then go back to Isaiah 7 and 8 and so forth. But here's 5. Now I sing to my well-beloved. Oh, this is beginning to sound like Song of Solomon. The Song of Songs. I sing to my well-beloved a song of my beloved touching his vineyard. My well-beloved hath a vineyard, and a very fruitful hill. And he fenced it, and he gathered out the stones thereof, and he planted it with the choicest vine, and he built a tower in the midst of it, and he made a wine press. When you go out the eastern gate in Jerusalem, you go about a quarter of a mile, and you're in the Garden of Gethsemane. you continue down that same road, and they have those huge olive trees, and some of them are 2,000 and 3,000 years old. So some of them were there at the time Christ was there. Uh, in the a garden of olives, they even have some wine presses. Uh, they have a wine press. I don't know if I can show you with my hands, but they're like made out of cement, and they're about this thick, and I've got about 5 inches here, and they're round, and they've got a round hole in the middle, so it looks kind of like an old wagon wheel, except it's solid cement except for the hole in the middle. And you have one of these round cement things on top of another round cement thing. And what happens is women, although men could do it, children could do it, take the top one and they move it. And then they move it back. And they do this. And they press those olives. Or you can do it to grain. Whatever you want to crush. You just move that. You get maybe 8 women around this. It's big. It's bigger than a wagon wheel. I'm going to say 5 to 6 feet in diameter, radius, diameter. It would be 2 radii make 1 diameter. Come on, help me, guys. All the way through about 5 to 6 feet. So you've got 6 to 8 women that are doing this. But they have it right there in the garden because it's convenient. You don't have to carry this off someplace and do something with it and then move it someplace else and do something. You've got it all there. Okay. My well-beloved has a vineyard. Best wine. They build a tower. They build a fence around it. I pray betwixt you and me about my vineyard. What could have been done more to my vineyard that I haven't done to it? How am I going to make it any fancier? I looked that it would bring forth grapes, and it brought forth wild grapes. And now I go to, I will tell you what I will do with my vineyard. I will take away the hedge thereof, and it shall be eaten up. And I'll break down that fancy wall that I made. I'll break it down. And it'll be trodden upon. We'll walk on it. And I will lay it in waste. I will not prune it. I will not dig in it. There will come up some briars, some thorns, and I will command the clouds. Clouds, don't you dare rain. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, all the Jewish nation. That vineyard that was cared for and had the best of it was like you take something normal, like a vineyard, but you give it such excellent care and love, and then it turns out to be a piece of junk. I said, I'm going to tell it not even to rain. That vineyard that belongs to the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, the nation of Israel. And the men of Judah, his pleasant plant, and he looked for judgment, but behold, he got oppression. He looked for righteousness, but behold, he got a cry. Nothing pleasant, nothing happy. Woe unto them that join house to house, that lay field to field, till there be no place, that they may be placed alone in the midst of the earth. In mine ears, said the Lord of hosts, of a truth, many houses shall be desolate, even great and fair, without inhabitant. Nice houses, nobody living in it. Yea, 10 acres of vineyard shall yield one bath. You know those big tubs that they stomp on the grapes? 10 acres will yield one bath. And the seed of an omer, and here I can't give you, I can look it up in a more modern version. Let me check it up. 10 acres. The seed of an omer will yield an ephah. That's Isaiah 5:10. Let's see if this version tells me. A 10-acre vineyard will produce 6 gallons of wine. 10 acres. 6 gallons of wine. And 6 bushels of seed will produce less than a bushel of grain. In other words, if you take 10 bushels of seeds and plant them in the ground, that's a lot of seed in the ground. You know, each little grain of corn that you plant gives you one stalk of corn with several ears, and every ear has, what, a few hundred more of those little corn seeds? How terrible it will be for the great houses will become empty. Fine homes will be left with nobody living in them. A 10-acre vineyard, well, I mentioned that. How terrible will it be for those that get up early in the morning to start drinking? How terrible for those who stay up late at night until they're drunk with wine. They have harps and lyres at their big dinners. Instruments. The harp is a stringed instrument, and so is the lyre. The lyre is more like a guitar. They have tambourines, flutes, and wine, but they don't have any concern for the mighty acts of the Lord. They're having a party and are happy. Nobody's praising the Lord. They don't have any respect for what his powerful hands have done. My people will be taken away as prisoners. That's because they don't understand what the Lord has done. Their government leaders will die of hunger. Now, instead of getting the best of everything, they're going to die of hunger. and the rest of the people won't have any water to drink. So the grave is hungry to receive them. In other words, they're almost dead. The mouth is open to swallow them up. Their nobles and the rest of the people will go down into it, into the grave. They will go there together with all those that have wild parties, so human beings will be brought low. They will be put to shame. People who brag will be brought down, but the Lord who rules over it will be honored because he judges fairly. Now, this is Isaiah. We're talking about something that hasn't happened yet. Lord rules over those that are honored because he judges fairly. The holy God will show that he is holy by doing what is right. Sheep will graze as if they were in grasslands. They're going to have all they need. Lambs will eat among the destroyed buildings. So grass and so forth will grow up around the buildings which have been destroyed and are in ruins. It sort of reminds me of, I'm from Michigan, and I see pictures of Detroit. Every once in a while, I would shop in Detroit instead of Royal Oak, which was the suburb I lived in. Because Detroit was something. I played when I was 13. I played at Wayne University summer concert band, something that high school students got to do, and I wasn't. I was almost in high school. We used to go out on Friday nights, I think, and give concerts. The difference between a concert band and a symphony orchestra is strings. They play the same kind of music, and this was a concert band. And we played in beautiful. Mama and Daddy are down pulling the shoestrings off my shoes. Come on, guys. I just felt something down there on my feet. Beautiful places. And now I see pictures of Detroit. And this is what it sounds like. Buildings. Nobody's lived there for so long. But if it rains, well, you'll get grass and you'll get weeds and you'll get some things growing there. Where rich people used to live. How terrible it will be for those who continue to sin and lie about it. It's bad enough to sin and do wrong, but then pretend that you didn't do wrong. How terrible for those who keep on doing what is evil as if they were tied to it. Let God hurry up and do what he says he will. We want to see it happen. I had gone from reading in this Bible, which is the King James Version, the oldest version, Protestant version that there is, to a kids study Bible of the New International Version, which is about 35 or 40 years ago that this came out. So let me finish reading this, 5. And that will take us up to where Isaiah ends. And next week we can start in Micah. Let me just finish this. How terrible for those who are heroes at mixing drinks. How terrible for those who take money and set guilty people free. Sounds like bribes. How terrible for those who don't treat good people fairly. Flames of fire burn up straw. Evil people will like plants whose roots rot away. That's because they've said no to the law of the Lord who rules over all. They turned against the message of the Holy One of Israel, so the Lord's anger burns against his people. He raises his hand against them and he strikes them down. The mountains shake. The bodies of dead people lie in the streets like trash. Even then, the Lord is still angry. His hand is still raised against them. He lifts a banner to gather the nations that are far away. Where are the other ones down here? I did that for a reason. He whistles for them. You hear him answering me? Can you hear him? That's Daddy. That's the father of this one. Oh, they're over there now. Daddy and Mommy, they're going across the living room floor. He's following her around and whistling. That means they'll be laying more eggs. Anyway, they're sweet. He lifts his banner to gather the nations that are far away. He whistles for them to come from the farthest places on earth. Here they come. They're moving very quickly. None of them grow tired. None of them fall down. None of them sleeps or even takes a nap. All of them are ready for battle. Every belt is pulled tight. Not a single sandal strap is broken. The enemy's arrows are sharp. All of their bows are ready. The hoofs of their horses are hard as rock. Their chariot wheels run like a twister. The sound of the army is like the roar of lions. It's like the roar of young lions. They growl as they capture what they're shaking. They carry it off. No one can take it away from them. At that time, the enemy army will roar over Israel. It will sound like the roaring of the ocean. You guys, Dogwood and Sissy and I live close to the water. Praise and Granny and Didit. Larry isn't all that far from the beach. But there's that roar of the ocean that is unlike any other sound. Yeah. They turned against the message of the Holy One of Israel. Even then, the Lord is angry. They move quickly. None of them get tired. None of them falls down. None of them sleeps or takes a nap. They're ready for battle. Every belt is pulled. Not a single sandal strap is broken. The enemy arrows are sharp. Their bows are ready. The hoofs of the horses are hard as rock. The chariot's wheel turned like a twister. The sound of the army is like the roar of lions. It's like the roar of young lions. They growl as they capture what they were chasing. They carry it off. No one can take it away from them. As long as the enemy army will roar over Israel, it will sound like the roaring of the ocean. They will see darkness and trouble. The clouds will make the light become dark. And I'm going to read just a verse or two into the next chapter. We don't really get to it because when we come back next week, we'll be in Micah. We won't be going to chapter 6 right away. But I'm reading it because I want us to understand this is part of the book of Isaiah. And the Lord is appointing Isaiah now to speak for him. And remember that King Uzziah, was it 52 years that he was king for? Was king for a long time. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord. He was seated on his throne. This is a little bit of what I read earlier. This vision that he saw. Let's see what this particular book, with easier words to read, how they explain it. I saw the Lord. He was seated on his throne. His long robe filled the temple. He was highly honored. Above him were seraphs. Each of them had 6 wings. 2 covered their faces. 2 covered their feet. And with 2 they were flying. They were calling out one to another. They were saying, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord who rules over them. The whole earth is full of his glory. It goes on in 9 verses to explain that the Lord gave Isaiah a dream. And it asks you to pay attention to see what it was that the angel said. And why was Isaiah scared? And what did the angel do to Isaiah and why? Well, remember he brought a coal from that 24-inch by 24-inch altar of briquettes. And he touched Isaiah's lips. And it said, what do you think God's voice sounds like? Well, obviously, I think the answer they're looking for is the roaring. Okay, that's as far as we're going to go today. I want to tell our guests, hang on here, that I'm going to make a quick change here. Just a second. Oh, I keep picking up this when I'm working on a laptop. That doesn't even make sense. I just made it possible for our guests to speak. I find it so hard to cut off communication from our guests. I do so because guests, now some are guests and they do have accounts with iBlog, but they choose to come on as a guest, which I think all of us do at one time or another. But you can be a guest and not have an account with iBlog. And one of our problems is that those that know how the systems work will sometimes take advantage of the fact that if they say something not too nice, there's not a thing I can do about it. I can't kick them out because where do I kick them out of? But we've had a guest that's been here for a while and hasn't been able to talk. We just wanted to say thank you for coming, and I hope you've enjoyed the program. If you'd like to make a comment or something, feel free to, and let me undo what I was doing here and get me back. Whoops. Okay. Yeah, you love Jesus and the birds. Had you been here before? You kind of want another bird? What kind did you have? Um, See, when we get somebody who's pleasant, I feel, oh, I don't want to ever not let guests talk. Oh, you were here when I showed you the pan flute. That would have been Sunday morning, a week ago. That would have been, yeah, that would have been Sunday morning, I think, as I was talking about how organs work. Okay. If you don't have an account, you might want to open an account. It doesn't cost anything. And then you would then become a chatter. And the difference is you give them an email address, and most people have several. Or you had a parakeet, so they're just a little smaller than these guys. All right. And you know, they're only $15. They pay me $55 for my birds, and they sell them for $129. But they sell the parakeets for $14.95. Oh, how sweet. See, guys, we get a nice person that's a guest, and I feel, oh, I don't want to not have guests have the privileges. And then we get some character like we have once in a while, and I've got to go back to it. But I thought that I would take the guests not talking off for just tonight, since we're finishing up. But I'm glad that you're one of us, a brother in the Lord or sister in the Lord. I shouldn't assume. Well, the thing of it is, guest, is that they've already said what they're going to say, and they've already hurt feelings, and they've already, you know, uh, and that hurts too. So it's just I'm always torn. But I will be keeping it off. The only yeah, do you have an account here? A lot of people that have an account use the okay. A lot of people have an account and they use the guest. I'll tell you frankly why I do. It's free. Yeah, it doesn't cost anything. I'll tell you why I use it on the few occasions that I do. Um, there is a program here uh, where they talk about sex toys. And I like to be friendly and visit the other people's shows. Uh, and I wanted to visit her show. But I didn't want to visit it at a time when they were discussing something that would frankly, I don't know that it would so much have embarrassed me as I would feel that people were asking, well, why is Pastor Barbara in that show? So I used even though obviously I have an account with them, I used that to go on anonymously uh, just to see what they were discussing. And then when they were not saying anything embarrassing, I went on and visited with them for 5 or 10 minutes. But so there are some reasons, some logical reasons for using it. And those are the people that I really resent, because it would be like uh, a button to sign up. There are, as a matter of fact, Praise and Worship has, um, he's the last of three under Chatters. He has a program. Uh, how old are the birds? Um, this one, these were born in May. This one I think is May 7th. Of the three, one was born May 1st because my birthday was on the 2nd. Yeah, you would enjoy Praise's program, and I don't know whether there are any others beside ours. And when you do, you notice at the well, notice where I'm pointing right now. It says unsubscribe. See right under there? To subscribe, if you subscribe to my program, then every time I go live, you get an email. And a guest can't do that. Yeah. But when you go to the front page, the page is black and you get white on black. Is that, or is it the opposite? Anyway, the first sentence says, if you want to join, click on here. And then the next sentence says, if you want to come on as a guest, click here. So obviously you're clicking on the second sentence. All you do is click on, you looked it up, huh? So, yeah. Well, the other one will say to join or to open an account or something like that. Excuse me, it just dawned on me. I have not closed off my, and I should have. Let me stop my recording. Now that I'm needing my mouse, I can't get it to work. Okay, until the next video, blessings on you. Good night.